tuned because next up we have David Charles Allen, host of the HOP, that's Home Ownership Podcast, here to tell you about what's happening with Santa Barbara real estate.
Welcome to the HOP. This is David Charles Allen, Realtor at Village Properties in Santa Barbara, California, with my great friend and co-host, Patty Teal. I'm doing wonderful today, Patty. How you doing?
I'm doing great too, David. Thanks for asking.
Good to hear. Beautiful weather here in Santa Barbara. A little warm, close to the 80s for the next week and sunny, but it's a beautiful time out here.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
It is. And then in terms of how interest rates are performing, 4.375 for jumbo 30-year and 4.875 for conforming 30-year. So again, they seem to be going a little bit back down again. So.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, well, we'll see if they continue to go up and down, a little more up and then a little more down, or what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really hard to really know with all these news reports too. They're all over the place and you really can't judge other people or the government or the feds are really going to do in the long run.
Right.
Then in terms of how the statistics have performed, 60 new listings, 26 price changes, 31 that closed, 36 that went pending, 12 that expired, and 3 that were coming soon. So I think that's the largest number of new listings we've had in quite some time at 60, but it's also a lot larger price changes that we've had too. So kind of what we've been saying. And then pendings are about almost close to half of what new listings are. So again, that's relatively low.
Yes, I don't remember them ever being in the 60s though in recent months. So that's good.
Yeah, it seems like the supply is building back up. Price changes are happening a lot more frequently and homes are still pending. I think like we've said, there's always going to be homes that are always going to be in more demand than others. And those ones are still selling, while the ones that may have been a little difficult to sell before all this happened are continuing to go back to being a little more difficult to sell.
I understand.
Any question of the day for me?
Well, I wonder, David, we haven't talked too much about the apartment complexes, multifamily investing, and how people get into that, and if it's something that's a good investment in Santa Barbara.
Now, what are you speaking on exactly? Like a multifamily condo or duplexes? Or I know there's those REITs now where you can invest like $100 into a real estate fund. I just don't know which one you're talking about.
REIT. I would like to hear more about that. But what I was actually wondering about were apartment complexes. I just wondered, with rents going up, I suppose it could be a duplex, but something where more than one family lives in, if that's a good investment since rents are so high right now. I know very expensive, but I just wondered about the investment opportunity for those who could afford it.
It's always going to be about how much you're paying in your mortgage in terms of how much you can get in your rental. And it's always going to be dependent. Some are going to be better than others in terms of that. But while you're doing that, you're also building equity in terms of if you are getting a loan, that means if your mortgage is being paid every month based on rent, or it's close to that or more, in the long term, you're going to own that home free and clear or apartment complex free and clear and just have all that income from rentals coming in. But a lot of people don't factor in maintenance and occupancy rates and just someone not paying rent and having to deal with that. So there's a lot of complications that could happen. But if you're up for kind of a challenge in dealing with people and being a landlord, it's definitely always going to be a great opportunity to have rental income, because if it's even getting close to what you can pay for your mortgage, that's going to help you out in the long run in terms of building wealth in the long term.
You always have such great answers, David. So I can understand that because prices in Santa Barbara are on the higher end, it might be hard, even though rentals are high, to cover the mortgage costs. But in the long run, if you're looking at a long-term investment, it seems like houses do continually go up in their value.
That's correct. A lot of people are looking for those single-family homes as well with ADUs. So that's like an extra rental income you can charge while you live there. Those have come on a lot in Santa Barbara, because then it's paying part of your mortgage and you still get to live there and you get your own house, you get like a separate ADU. There's a lot of other kind of laws potentially going into place where you can split the lot into 4 homes or split your lot into 2 different homes. So if you have a bigger lot, you can build like apartment complexes in the back. It's getting complicated because they're trying to increase density And
Mhm.
there's a lot of fight back in terms of people that want to live in single family neighborhoods, not wanting all these people congesting the streets. But in terms of the lawmakers, they think if they can increase density, it's going to lower prices. But in the end, prices probably won't get lowered at all. It's just going to make it more populated in a smaller space.
Oh, that's disappointing because if it would help take care of some of the expensive rentals for people and prices would go down, I'd be all for it. But if it's just going to make it more dense and still expensive, what's the point?
Yeah, I think there's just so much demand still that it wouldn't make any costs lower than what they are, because it would be on the lower end anyway. And then in terms of rentals are always tough to find. So if you're able to build 3 units and rent them all out, your price could even increase because that's a higher return on your money from that piece of property. So not only would it increase density, the prices could even go up. So it seems counterintuitive, but that it kind of seems like that could happen as well.
Well, lots to think about there, David. Thank you for describing that issue so well and the pros and cons of it. And then you mentioned the REIT. I don't know what that stands for, but you have mentioned it before where you're buying a piece of a home.
I think that's what it's called, REIT. It's basically, I think Amazon's doing it, and there's a couple other companies that are starting up. They're buying 100 homes at a time and turning them all into rentals. So they're buying whole communities. And that was what a lot we were talking about, how these investment funds are coming in and swooping up all the supply. And then they instantly turn them into rentals, and then they can essentially control the price of the rentals. It's kind of similar to how the market works. There's no real value in art. But if you have someone that holds the majority of the art and sells it to somebody else at a high price, whoever, if that was a legit sale at a high price or not, then all that artwork becomes more valuable because people see it sold at a certain number. So if a certain investment group owns enough rental properties, they're allowed to potentially manipulate the rent to keep it inflated in a sense. But that's what these REITs are too. You can invest like $100 or $1,000 into these REITs and you get probably dividends or some kind of percentage back every year on that money. And then you technically have home ownership in a piece of a home as compared to someone that doesn't have enough funds to actually go purchase a home themselves.
I see. Do you get to stay there part of the time, like a timeshare?
No, it's
No,
not a timeshare.
purely
It's purely like
investment.
a stock kind of investment. So you're investing on the housing market.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, thank you, David. I'm so glad you keep up on all of this. And how are those fur babies doing?
Everyone's doing great. They're glad to be back in Santa Barbara. Mango's doing his thing around the neighborhood and loving life, and everyone else is doing really well.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. And mine are just being barking fools. You probably heard them in the background, but other than that, they're doing great.
I haven't heard them, so
I
that's
tried
good
to
to
mute when they really barked loudly. Anyway, David, thank you so much for sharing the latest real estate stats and interest rates. I hope you have a great week. Enjoy that warm spell.
All right, Patty, you too. Let's give it again next week.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.